Hello, welcome to Sean Builds a Lisp. My name is Sean and I am building a Lisp. Last time, what did we do? We got our reader into shape and we started expanding our expand function and added a couple of built-in macros. We added a function macro and a block macro. So our function macro looks like this. So we call function with bar, block, and we just call an arbitrary. We pretend that bar is a function, so that gets compiled to relevant JavaScript. So let's see. What we want to do now is start building hygiene into our macros. So basically, what that means is, let me just kind of find a blank space to kind of type some Lisp. All right, so let's say that we have a macro, and I'm just gonna pretend like a macro definition works like a function definition. And so let's say that we have a macro bar, and we return syntax quote form of bar. So basically, this macro, when called, actually, let's just add another parameter, bar. Let's say bar 1. So basically, this macro, when called, will expand to the form bar called with function application bar with arguments of 1. Now let's say that we say function. We make a new function, and then we say, let's just say var bar equals 2. Sorry, this is bad. All right, let's say that this is going to return baz instead, and let's say that baz is some function. And so let's say var baz is 2. And we call, let's just pretend that we're going to add calling bar with baz. So what we would calling bar with baz. All right, sorry. I'm going to basically unquote. So this is unquote, so it will expand. So if we call, let's do call our macro. Sorry, this is, I didn't think this example through. All right, so we have a macro called foo, and it takes a parameter bar, and basically it's going to all right, I am doing a terrible job of explaining this. I can't get my thoughts out. All right, let's try to simplify this. All right, so let's make a function baz that just is a bit simpler. All right, so what's baz? Let's say that baz just returns 1. All right, so if we call foo all right, so we're going to just add var baz, and we'll set that to 1. There we go. And so basically, if we were then to call our macro foo with our function baz, we would expect this to expand to baz, right? Okay, but the problem is, let me just, all right. Right? The problem is that our function baz and this variable baz inside the macro are shadowing each other. So when this actually, let's just say that we unquote both of these. So this actually expands to baz, and it's ambiguous. So this baz should be pointing to the function, and this baz should be pointing to this variable. Of course, the problem, so basically what we want to do is every time we introduce a binding form, we want to tag that form with the scope that it originated from, so that when we go through and expand, we would actually generate multiple things. So basically, as we expand this, as we expand the foo function, we would actually want this to become baz_1, for example. So this would become that, and now it's ambiguous, despite the fact that we are shadowing variables from different places. Okay, so long-winded explanation. That's probably not super clear, but I'm going to go ahead and get started anyway. Okay, so, oops. Okay, so what do we want to do here? So I have a test end set up here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is all right, before I even start doing that, we need to modify our syntax objects a little bit. So, in addition, right now we have syntax, value, length, and trivia. We're not actually using length and trivia. So basically, to be more flexible, I'm going to change this to taking an options object. So basically, what we'll do is spread our Babel syntax objects with the ops. So this will just allow us to tag the syntax objects with additional parameters. So this will include source locations, and oops, that's my syntax object. So all right, so this will include source locations, and the reason I'm adding it right now specifically is so that we can attach scopes to syntax objects. So what we'll do is I'm going to bring my block test here, and we're going to modify our block macro to attach scopes. Actually, maybe let's do the function first. It's might be a little more obvious. Whoops. I'm gonna open function.spec. Whoa. Okay. Sorry. I should also mention that so far in these streams, I have kind of known where I was going and how I wanted it to work. And on this one, I have only a vague idea of where I'm going and how I want it to work. So that's why I'm kind of jumping around. It's just kind of raw thoughts going onto the screen. All right, function spec, and on this side, we want function to be open. Okay, so Okay, so we will introduce bar. So I'm thinking through how I want to do an example of this. So basically, what we want to actually do is write an expand one function. Let's see here. Okay, so inside this function, we are making a new binding to bar. So given if our environment already contains a binding to bar, then we expect this to actually basically generate a new identifier symbol for this. Alrighty, so how do we want to make sure this happens? Let's see here. All right, so just for now, I'm going to spread env, and I am going to assign bar to basically some function, and I'm going to just make this return an identifier bar. What is this error? Unexpected token. Huh. Env. And we have, oops. All right, so where is this? I should just command click into it, huh? All right, let's do this, and where are we here? Double click. Okay. Oh no, this looks fine. What? ESLint. What are you complaining about? Let's take a look. Huh, ES6. All right, well, I'm just going to continue. All right, let's just let's check our package.json, and let's make sure that we're running function. Just make it easier to run just this function test. Okay. npm run test current should run just the function, and we should error because we're expecting this bar underscore one identifier, and we will get bar because we haven't done anything. Actually, we crashed. What'd we do? Unexpected token. Okay, what? Oh. ESLint's just pointing to the wrong spot. We need to do this. All right, try that again. Great. Okay, that's what we expected. So basically, here's how we will do this. All right, so okay, so basically what we want to do is essentially assign a bunch of scopes to our parameters. So all right, so in our all right, let's see, in our expander project, I'm going to add a function add scope.js, and we're gonna start by we're not gonna write any tests, but so module.exports equals function add scope, and this will take a syntax object and a scope. And we haven't defined what a scope is yet, but we can define that later. The main thing is our syntax object So we will switch on syntax.type. And I'm just going to, oh, interesting. We're gonna write a bunch of extra code here. All right, I'm gonna look at our expand function just because we're so in our expand function, we're already enumerating all of the different types. So basically our syntax objects are going to be array expressions, symbol literals, or other built-in Babel AST nodes. So we will just do the same thing. So if it is an array expression, then we will return, whoa, caps. All right, so we will return our original syntax, and then elements we will map over. So syntax.elements, we're just going to loop over these and call add scope with each element and the scope. So basically we're gonna recurse down through our syntax tree. And in the case of a symbol literal, actually, in all other cases, we are simply going to return our syntax object, and scopes will be all right, syntax dot scopes and scope. So basically we're just going to append. Actually, we probably want to just use a set. All right, let's do, we're gonna make scopes a set. All right, so new set, syntax dot scopes, and actually, and what do we want to do here? We want to actually, let's see. So we're gonna, let's just come outside the, all right, so we are going to copy the scopes, and then we are going to add the scope. So then we can just simply attach the scopes, and we'll need a comma there. Okay, return. Great. So what is next? Okay, so then in our function macro, all right, so params dot elements. All right, so we will expand. All right, boom, boom, boom. All right, so what I'm gonna do is param IDs, we're just gonna pull this out of this expression. Okay. So basically this will reduce to identifiers. And so basically we want to make a new env, which we will, and I'm doing this really sloppily, we will probably come back and optimize some of this, but just to kind of get started, let's do this. So, all right, so for each identifier, we want to introduce a parameter. So we will do param IDs. Actually, let's reduce that and all right, so we're going to collect the param ID into our little inner env. And if we simply set this, we're going to overwrite the previous bar value. So we will want to modify how we're handling our environment. So let's make another function, extend env. All right, so module.exports equals extend env. And function extend env. All right, what are our parameters? We're going to take a source env, and we're going to take a set of bindings. So okay, so this will return bindings is an array, so we're going to reduce those here. Very similar to what we were doing here. So inner env and binding. We haven't said what binding is yet, but let's just get our skeleton up and running. And actually, let's just see it with the env. So, okay, so actually, all right, so if we, let's say that our binding is, let's just say that it's a tuple. So basically, bindings is going to be an array of identifier and value. So basically, all right, so if inner env, we will also need some scopes. All right. Anyway. All right, so if inner env will look up the identifier, then inner env identifier. All right, so let's call inner env. All right, so let's say that each key is an array to values. So we will push our value. And so I think that our value is going to be an object, some sort of object that has scopes, which is a set. And let's call this binding and binding, which will be some either a function or an identifier, something along those lines. All right, so let's just do this. If not, inner_env identifier, inner_env identifier equals that, and then outside of the if statement, we'll push it on. So basically, we always ensure that our environment has an array to push onto, and we push it onto. If it already exists, then we just push the value. So let's grab that function. And we'll require that from blisp/expander/extend. Whoops, and great. Okay, so now we just need to map these things together. All right, so inner env will be extend env. We will take our env and we will basically expand our param IDs into our binding functions. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to return an array. Let's just say that this will be param id.name. Okay, so what I'm thinking here is right here, I think I might just add the scopes. Actually, all we need to do is call add scopes. All right, let me grab add scopes, or sorry, add scope. And this is coming from blisp expander/add scope. All right, so param IDs, we expand into the identifiers and we will call add scope. We need a new scope. All right, so what I'm gonna do here is I am just going to, whoops. All right, equals symbol, and that's it. We're just gonna grab a symbol. Our scopes can just be symbol. All we need is something that we can compare. So we will add scope with our scope. All right, so now our parameters have scopes, so we can all right, so we'll just add our param ID here. Oh, missing a parenthesis there. Okay. Do we still have a syntax error? Why didn't it format? Yep, we do. Okay, so let's just move this down here and see. Okay, so. Okay, and then we want to call this with inner env. Great. Okay. So essentially what we've done here is so basically, if we rerun this, we expect nothing to have changed. Oh, but we crash. Let's see. Oh, simple typo. Identifier is not defined, huh? Oh, extend env. Oh, this should be binding for one. All right, so actually, let's not spread that. Let's do that. All right. Oh, here we go. Let's do this. Identifier binding. We will destructure that into an array. So there we go. Let's try this again. Okay. What do we have here? Resolved is not a function. Oh, look at that. Resolved is not a function. We got it. All right. So basically what we did here is in expand, we were assuming that this will always be, sorry, where are we? All right, so if it's an identifier, we resolve it. So we look it up in the env, and right now we are assuming that it is always going to be a function, but that's not the case. Let's do switch type of resolved. And so this will be a function in the case of a macro. So what is this? Macro function. All right, in the case of a function, we will call it. In the case of an object, we will. So basically here is, so basically here's where we want to return bar underscore 1. I'm just going to look at this again. And so okay, so basically we need to go look at our resolve function. All right, so all we're doing is returning the value in the environment, but what we did inside this, sorry, inside extend env is we just turn them into arrays. So we're going to jump to es5/index, which is where we have our initial function. All right, so we will make these arrays. Okay. We're probably not quite there yet. All right, so for now, if it's an object, I'm just going to return it so that we can have our test run again, and then we can figure out how to go about this. Property expected to be a type block statement. Okay, so what we're doing is we're returning our array. I'm just going to return the first element. All right, let's run this again. See what we can do. Cannot write property 0 of undefined. Oops. Try that again. All right, so we have some errors. Oh boy, this is a big fat mess right now. All right, what are we doing? Okay, let's see. Extend env. Did we mess this up somehow? All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up my launch config. Basically tell it to only run the function test, which one? Test current, and let's just run our function test. I'm just gonna run it, and we'll break on that exception and see what the heck's going on in there. If it ever starts. There we go. Okay. What do we have here? Inner env, what do we have? Oh, I think I messed up my test here. Yeah, this needs to be an array. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right, I'm gonna jump to the terminal and just run it again. All right, so cool. We did not crash, but what did we get? We did not get what we expected. Body bar identifier. Ah, we're just returning the first one. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is actually, let's just call add scope to this guy. Yeah, that's pain. Let's do scopes is a new set, empty set. Okay, so basically our cool. So what I'm gonna do is just going to break here and let's inspect inner env because we are getting closer, but it might not be obvious. Oops, I need to actually run it. Cool. So let's just print out inner env down here, expand that guy, we'll expand bar. So you can see that we have one identifier for bar with an empty set and one identifier with bar with our scope. And this is the scope that was added to our symbols. Okay. So, what we want to do now is take resolve and it will also take an optional, let's just say optional, and new set. Okay, so we're going to add this third parameter to resolve. So all of the core identifiers will have an empty set, and then anything that's added through the program will essentially have some non-empty set. It'll have a set of scopes. And so when we're resolving, we want to pass in the scopes for that we are resolving. So what we want to do is actually, let's just reduce this guy. Yeah, you know what? All right, let's just do this procedurally. I think it'll maybe make more sense. All right, so if we have no symbol, let's just return undefined. Okay, otherwise, for, and what are we doing? We are for binding of env symbol. I'm also going to set this up max scopes equals 0. Let's set it to -1 actually. So all right, so now each of these bindings should have a set of scopes. So if num scopes equals binding dot, actually, yeah, everything's gonna have to have scopes, so we'll go back. Binding dot scopes, and this is a set. Can't remember. Set length. Let's just go to MDN and find out. Maybe. Go. Let's see. Size. All right. Dot size. All right. So if we ever encounter, so basically the way this is going to work is we're going to go through the scopes and basically find the largest matching, largest matching subset of scopes. So for each binding, it will have a set of scopes. What we want to do is actually, I'm going to comment this out. I was getting ahead of myself. So we want to filter down. All right, so inside here, let's filter. So we have a binding. So we want to basically say, does the binding have a complete, is it a complete subset of the scopes that we're passing in? So basically, as we're going down through, we will be adding scopes. So every function gets a scope, every block gets a scope. So basically, we'll be adding scopes. And so as we're resolving, we should always be resolving the symbol with the most matching scopes. So I'm going to check to see if set, if I can do if they have a function for that, or if I have to do it myself. Looks like I have to do it myself. Okay, so const matches scope equals true. So we'll just assume it's true. I need to get rid of this. This is not correct. All right, so for const scope of binding dot scopes, I'm just going to kind of cheat a little bit. So basically, I am going to just use an empty set, assuming that if a binding does not have a scopes, then its scopes is actually the empty set. This might cause bugs later because it's kind of an implicit thing that you need to know about, but kind of want to keep moving forward conceptually rather than deal with the nitty gritty. So if scopes we'll continue. All right, so basically all we're doing is going through and if a binding has a scope that is not in the set of scopes that we passed in, then we don't want to consider this for the resolution of this function. It has to be a complete subset. All right, so now we want to compare the sizes. There we go. All right, so if the current binding has a set of scopes that is the same size as our current max scopes, then this is an error. Ambiguous binding. Let's just print out the symbol with that. All right, good enough. We probably want more errors, but anyway, if we've already encountered a binding with the same number of scopes, we are in trouble. Actually, is that true? This might not. We'll come back to it. That might not be a correct assumption. I don't think it is. Anyway, so if binding dot scopes dot size is greater than max scopes, then max scopes equals binding dot scopes dot size. We don't need that. Let binding equal. Just let binding. All right. So binding. Oh no. Max binding. Why not? Okay. Max binding equals binding, and we will return max binding. Okay, so all right, so what we want to do now, if we run, let's run our tests, just make sure that we're still running and still failing in the correct way. Oh my. All right, let's just so I'm just gonna pull this out so that I don't have to go fix all the areas where I've added stuff to the end that doesn't have scopes yet. Scopes, binding scopes. All right, run our whoops, one more. All right, let's run our test again. All right, let's just make sure that so something strange is going on. we are resolving to an identifier somehow. All right, so if we look at what we're testing, function foo, parameter bar, block, should call bar. So that should be compiled to a call expression is what I'm looking at here. I wonder why that's not happening. Oh, wait a second. I'm just going to, let's go back to assuming that the resolved will be a function. I think that might still be true. Nope, okay. Resolved is not a function. All right, I'm just going to rerun this in the debugger and let's see what's going on. Oh, I see. So basically, here, if it's an identifier, if resolved and type of resolved is function, then we want to call expand. We're going to expand the macro. All right, let's try running that. Okay, so let's look here. Okay, so I think that what I'm gonna do here is when we're compiling a symbol to an identifier, actually, hold on. Extend env. So basically, we need to also pass our we also need to add our scopes. All right, so scope, add scope. All right, I'm just going to inline make a new set here. Yeah, maybe not. Scopes equals new set. And this will be syntax dot scopes or empty set. And we will add our scope. All right, I'm just going to maybe not stop that. I just want to peek at the constructor for set. Okay, great. As I was typing it, autocomplete was saying that I needed to pass an array. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't true. All right. Okay, so extend to env, and let's just all right. Maybe getting a little messy, but if we come back to our extend env, all right, so basically we want to essentially, at the point that we're adding the binding to the env, decide if we need to generate a new identifier for it. So all right, so basically do we want to do this here? Okay, so I'm backing up. Yeah, I think we want to do this here. So what we'll do is for const scope of, no, for binding of inner env identifier. And this is going to look very similar to resolve, actually. All right, might as well pull this out into a function then. Let's call this resolve candidates. All right, so basically, I think I messed up my, what is, all right, something is not working. What's going on? Oh, there we go. Okay. So basically what we're gonna do is pretty much grab this. And what do we, we'll get a symbol, an env, and a set of scopes. Okay, and we have some syntax errors someplace in here. I'm going to just make this a little bigger. Ah, function. Almost there. Where is this? This is closing our for loop, so we need one more. Alrighty, so const candidates, and we'll just make this an array. And okay, so candidates. So basically what I'm doing is this is collecting an array of bindings that are in the env that match the set of scopes that we're resolving in. All right, so we will push the binding. All right, so kind of tempted to add a filter, but I won't. So we'll do resolve candidates with our symbol and env and our scopes. So now we can get rid of this because we know that's fine. We'll loop over it twice. We might want to optimize that later. Okay, so in our extend env, Okay, so let's look at existing bindings equals resolve candidates, and we will call that with our identifier inner env, inner env, and binding dot scopes. Okay, so what we want to look at here is if existing bindings dot length is greater than 0, we want to okay, so the binding might not actually be in type of binding is an object. All right, so for now I'm assuming that the only thing we're ever going to pass in here are identifier AST nodes and functions. So if the length is greater than 0 and it's of type object, what I want to do is spread the binding and set the name to, we'll do binding.name underscore existing bindings dot count or dot length. All right, so basically if there is already a matching binding with the same identifier, then we're essentially going to say this new identifier is different. Okay, so what we want to do is run our tests, and hopefully we get a little bit closer. Oh, we need to import that. Resolve candidates equals require dot slash resolve candidates, and we need that over here too. All right, let's run it. Uh-oh. All right, let's debug it. Not sure what's happening. I think it looks like we are not resolving our macro now. Okie doke, let's see. Let's look at our env here. Okay, so we do have a block, and our block contains our function. All right, continue. Let's see. Oh, shoot. All right, what we need to do here. All right, we need to put a breakpoint here, and let's just jump there. All right, rerun. All right, and over here I'm going to add a watch expression for first name. Okay, so block. Let's take a look at our env. Oh. Let's actually look at first. What is this? Identifier name block. we need to do first dots. We also need to pass in our scopes. Oh, you know what? Resolve candidates is oh my. Okay, scope of binding scopes. I think that needs to be there. Okay, so what are we doing here? All right, so we are going through our bindings. Oh, this isn't going to work. Okay. All right, so if not found, we will continue in the outer loop, and if we don't have a scope, we will set found to false and break. All right, I'm going to rerun. All right, so I'm just going to, so we expect, actually, let's see, what's first? All right, so this is our block. We expect this to resolve to our block function. Yeah, let's just call it before we continue. Oh, okay. Did we fix it? We might have fixed it. All right, now we've got a bunch of breakpoints. Okay, so we're all right. So let's see here. All right, so I expected one of these to work. All right, I'm going to go to our test file, and I am going to oh, you know what? Here's our problem. Okay, I want to jump into expand and okay, so actually let me put expand right next to our function. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is we are resolving. All right, so as we go through, we add our scope and we extend our env with param_id, this guy. But our param IDs are still, it's still bar at this point. Okay, what's happening? All right, so at this point we have an array of identifiers. So just to kind of keep moving here, what I'm going to do is resolve param_id dot name. All right, what are we doing? We want to import resolve first. Const blisp slash expander slash resolve. resolve function. What does it take again? Okay, symbol and scopes. Great. We'll probably collapse the scopes into our environment once we have things kind of working. All right, so we have our inner env, and we have our scopes. Okay, I'm going to run this on the terminal and let's just see. Ooh, sorry about that. All right, so what do we get? Still nothing. Okay. Oh, look at this, parameters, bar 1. Okay, so now we need to resolve symbols that we encounter. So when we go back to expand.js, down here where we have a symbol literal, what we actually want is to resolve this will be syntax.value.description. And we'll do that in our env. And do we have scopes here? Yes, we do. So this will be syntax.scopes. And if we get undefined, we will return, we'll just do, I think this can be symbol.value.description as well. Okay, let's try running that. And what do we get? Okay, let's debug it. That's a crash. Okay, undefined. So I'm just walking back in the stack trace and let's just see. All right, so now we're here. Syntax.value. Oh my. Okay. That, so what I was thinking is if I call symbol foo like this, then I call description. Okay, I thought that would work. I'm gonna jump over to MDN because clearly I don't understand symbols. MDN symbol. Okay. Is this, oh, this is a new thing. Okay. Let's see. What about value of? Say symbol foo dot value of symbol for foo dot value of. Oh wait. Nope. It's just returning symbol. Okay. Primitive. What's this? Oh, those are the well-known symbols. All right, so I'm just reading the documentation on this. Okay, I think we need to go back to doing symbol key 4. Unfortunately, I thought that I could be clever. All right, so key 4. All right, well, we'll need it a couple times, so let's just grab it. Key, and this guy will also be key. Okay. So let's try running that again. What do we get? Oh. Undefined. That's still not working, huh? All right, let's rerun. All right, let's see. Let's take a look at some of these values. All right, so we have syntax dot scopes. No. Oh. Okay, we haven't added it yet. Okay, so this is in the parameters block. All right, let's look. Syntax dot scopes. Still don't have any scopes. What's happening? Let's look at our env. Okay, so we have those. Oh, wait a second. We need to add our scopes to the body. All right, so okay, we want to expand, add scope body, and we want our scope. Okay, I'm just going to, let's just rerun. All right, so I'm just going to check the scopes. Actually, I'm just going to add this to the watch guy over here. Syntax dot scopes. What is this? Let's say syntax dot type. Oh, I want elements dot map here. Okay. Okay, so great. Oh, yes, we do. And let's see what our return value is. Return value, object bar 1. Great. Still have a problem. Okay. Let's keep running, see what our problem is. Okay. Let's run it again. I just walked over a breakpoint that I probably wanted to look at. Okay, where are we here? Let's see. first. Oh my, why did that not work? So oh, look at that. So as we expanded, we expanded our symbol into a function. Okay, so I think this will break eventually. But what we'll do is now we can just okay, let's just let's just check if it's a function. If type of first is function, then let's turn. We'll just spam code at the problem until we know what we're doing. Oops, this is not resolved. This is first. Okay, so fingers crossed. Well, we didn't crash. Oh, look at this. Okay, so what happened here is we just have some scopes. All right. This is a function we'll want later anyway, so what I'm going to do is just going to add a function, remove all scopes. Exports function remove all scopes, and what do we take? We take a syntax object, and that's it. All right, so result. I'm just going to spread the. You know what? Here's what we want to switch. Syntax.type. And if we have an array expression, we want to recurse. That result. I'm just going to spread this guy right away. All right, so and we'll set elements to the syntax.elements.map this time, .map, and let's do element, and we will just recurse. Move all scopes, element, and then we'll delete result dot scopes. All right, so now I'm gonna come over to my function test here, and let's move all scopes on this guy. And we of course need that. All right, shall we try it again? Oh, bummer. Okay. Bummer. Okay, that's a little more complicated. All right, so what I want to do is actually compare this, ignoring the scopes key. Let me see. I'm gonna jump over to Google and let's just see if Chai has anything for this. Chai ignore. Okay. Alrighty, this looks like what I want. So let's install that. And let's see how to use it. Okay, so include. Okay. And what? Excluding. Okay, so let's come over here. And then this will get a little more complicated. Okay, so we want that, and then Chai, and okay, now we don't need our remove all scopes. Okay, so to equal excluding scopes. Let's see if that does the trick. Okay. Where are we? Okay, come on. Excluding. Yep, I did mean excluding, and it's just a typo. Okay, where is it? Excluding. Okay, excluding scopes. That didn't do what I expected. Okay, just reading excluding every. Try that. I'm just going to go ahead and put this down here too. Oops. Let's run. Fingers crossed. All right, we made it. Whew, that was fun. So, what would also be interesting is to let's just kind of review what we just did. Okay, so if we start in resolve, okay, so we added a set of scopes to our resolve function. We walk through, we resolve all the candidates. So anything that's in the environment that matches the lookup symbol and whose scopes are are a subset of our test scopes. We'll walk through, verify that there's no ambiguities, and we will pick the binding with the largest set of scopes. Great. And then we wrote, what did we do? We said extend env. So what we do here is we loop through a set of bindings, appending them to the environment for that symbol and generating a unique symbol if the binding already exists, if there's a matching binding existing in the set or in the current scopes. So we probably want to all right, so if we look at expand here, I'm just thinking how I just kind of spit code out all over the place. So I'm thinking about how I actually want to kind of keep this in a maintainable state, because we added scopes and they just exploded and now they're everywhere. So as we expand these things, first of all, we have a call expression here that won't have any scopes. Not sure if that's important or not. And if we look at function, we did a bunch of stuff. So we create a scope and then we make a new set of scopes and then we add our scope and we go through our param IDs and etc. I'm wondering if we can just say, the other thing we need to do is somehow extend the environment, when we're in our function, we need to somehow extend this environment with our ID as well. Okay, so let's take a look at I'm gonna jump to my function test and just kind of walk through my thinking here. So here we have function foo bar block bar. But what if we added something like that? So if we add a variable here, and you know what? Not even to be confused with const or let. I've run out of dummy names, but so if we add a variable, we need to add this to the function scope. And if we add a const, we need to add this to the block scope. So as block is compiling these guys, actually, let's just keep this simple. Let's say that we have a function baz, which simply returns 1. All right, I'm going to make this a little easier on the eyes here. Okay, so block takes a set of arguments and expands them in order. And say that we call bar with baz. All right, so going through here, we add to the global scope the identifier foo, and then we descend into our block, and now to the function foo's scope, we need to add baz. So that when we call bar baz, we will call the right baz. So basically, as we are compiling this, we need a way to essentially add things to the scope from outside. Let's see, what's the easiest way to do this? So in function, all right, so I'm just going to make this a little easier to read here. All right, so essentially here, what we want to do is if we have an identifier, add binding for ID to our current env. The problem is we don't control the environment here. The caller does. So what can we do? So I think that what we'll actually want to do is we probably want to make, what do we want to do? So basically, as we're walking through this block, we've got function. Basically, we want to say, next time we encounter a function with an ID, add it to generate a binding for that ID in this function's scope. Okay. Sorry, thinking quite a bit. Okay, so how can we go about doing this? So one way I can think of is to essentially mask the function macro itself. And kind of just grab it. I'm just going to play around with that. I don't know if this is actually, you know what? Before I start messing too much, I'm going to commit this so that I can get back to my state here. Actually, I think I can just do it. Add -a here. Yeah, that looks right. What are we saying? Add half of Hygenic macros. Okay. I'll push that. Okay, so we want to add some extra bindings here. Okay, so we definitely want to add bindings for all of our parameters, and then we're gonna add one for function itself. Kind of inception here. Basically, then another question is, what happens to function hoisting here? Whew, okay. I think that this is a little more complicated than I thought it was gonna be. So I was planning on streaming for 2 hours. And I think this is more than 15 minutes. I have 15 minutes left. I think this is more than 15 minutes of work. So I am going to call it a day there. And I already pushed to GitHub, so it'll also be good to step away from the problem for a little bit. And always find that it's helpful to step back and come back with fresh eyes after you get digging into something. But the main thing is we broke new ground and got started. So as always, thanks for watching, and until next time.